So to start this morning, let's do a mental exercise. I'd like for you to imagine you're walking into a restaurant. So this is actually the Homemade Cafe in Berkeley, California. It's a really delightful little restaurant. But it's around brunch time, you and your friend have decided to go get some food for the morning. So you're greeted at the door by a hostess who asks you to sign up for a list, tells you there might be a 20 to 25 minute wait. After standing in the rain for a bit, having a good conversation with your friends, your name is called. The hostess draws you into the restaurant, taking you to the far back right corner of this little diner-style restaurant. You sit down on these padded stools. Once you've settled in and received your menus, the waiter comes over and takes your drink order. Because it's 11:15, you order an orange juice. And because it's already 11:15, your roommate orders a mimosa. So the waiter comes back with the drinks and asks if there's any questions on the menu. You respond, "What exactly is the breakfast burger?" The waiter then goes on to describe the most heavenly thing you've ever heard of. A burger patty made with ground beef, ground bacon, and ground sausage, topped with eggs, made to order, sandwiched in between two pieces of French toast. So in that moment, you realize that this waiter knows you way too well, and you decide that this monstrosity is probably what you're going to order. So after he's taken your order, you watch him wander around to the other side of the counter and place your order on the rotating ticket holder. That's the technical term. That's your ticket, the rotating ticket thingy. Halfway through the orange juice, there's a pause in the conversation, and you look up to see the chefs buzzing around this small diner-style kitchen. You notice that the head chef has taken a step back from the grill after he's finished another order and starts looking over the ticket rotation thingy. He then pulls a few tickets, rearranges them slightly, and then starts to call out items and requests to his teams. There are 2 pieces of cinnamon French toast, 2 scrambled eggs, home fries, and bacon sausage beef burger. His support chef calls back 2 pieces of cinnamon French toast are getting fired, and that he's low on powdered sugar. The head chef then nods in understanding and calls to the prep boy, saying, "Hey, could you refill the powdered sugar at the bread station?" So while that gets taken care of, the head chef and support chefs step to their grills and start cooking again. Eggs get cracking, flames are sizzling, and there's bacon smells all around you. When the chef has a second, he looks over to the support chef and asks how the French toast is coming. The support chef responds with 2 minutes as he flips the egg-drenched pieces of bread. Once this lovely magic has happened, the chef and the sous chef work together to plate up the food. The plate is tossed not so gently onto the counter for the waiter to pick up, and he pulls down the ticket from the holder thingy and places it next to the plate. The head chef calls out, "Order up," and the waiter turns around and says, "Got it." After the waiter looks over the plate and grabs the ticket and looks over the ticket, he confidently walks over us and delivers what he knows is the best thing that we're going to eat all day. As you slather this monstrosity in front of you with syrup and start to stuff your face, you see that the station that the chefs have been using is in disarray. But the chefs are already wiping down the surfaces and chatting about how the bacon sausage beef burger could have been fired 30 seconds faster to match with the plating of the cinnamon French toast. The finished bill then crosses from the waiter to your hands crosses from the hostess to the waiter at the pickup point, and the hostess starts to add up all the prices and calculate the taxes. After she's finished, the waiter picks up the bill and places it gently on our table and offers some last-minute pleasantries. We carried the bill feeling quite stuffed and a little defeated, having had to leave half of the home fries on the plate due to the sheer size of our bacon sausage beef burger, and we feel satisfied and ready for a nap. So this is the actual bacon beef sausage burger with eggs, cheese, and French toast. It is absolutely delicious. It really does exist. Please go to the Homemade Cafe in Berkeley if you ever have a chance to. This is the station that they use. This was all a real experience for me. So just a little bit of background story on myself, and I'll kill the diner noises, the ambiance. So a little background on myself. I'm Justin Rhodes. I'm a former project manager, now turned business development for Canopy Studios. Growing up, my whole entire life was changed in 7th grade when I took a class called Study Strategies, and I was introduced to an outline. And since then, organization has been like candy for me. I've been obsessed with reorganizing my crayons by color, my shirts from light to dark, pencils always nulled from the largest to the smallest, with the erasers always lined up perfectly. With an agile process, when I was introduced to organization professionally, especially with an agile process, my mind just blossomed. I was able to start grabbing onto these ceremonies and roles that people would be taking in my life, and really getting interested in trying to figure out how to get them invested into taking on those roles and creating workflow structures. But my love of Agile goes a lot further than just project management in a professional setting. It kind of bleeds over into my life, and I'm sure some of my friends and family are pretty annoyed about it. But I'm sure you're wondering, why did we talk about a restaurant? And the reason we talk about a restaurant is because the Agile Project Management system, or philosophy, is a little convoluted for most people to dive into. It's kind of hard to sink your teeth into if you don't have a lot of project management experience, or you haven't read at least 3 books on Agile. It's a little annoying. But Agile Philosophies is an incredible tool that everybody can use to greatly increase their productivity, not only with their friends and family around themselves, with their personal development process, but also with small teams. Not really large teams, but small teams. So let's revisit the restaurant real quick. So firstly, we have to go back to the very beginning of this story. Who is the main key person of this story? It's the client. You have to imagine that my friend and I walking into this restaurant, we are the client. These are the people that you're trying to please. The whole system is built around the client and is customized exactly to the needs of each individual client. So when we talk about walking into this restaurant again, we're talking about walking into a development shop. We're talking about walking into an agency, having a phone call, having a conversation. This is the initial meeting where you start to understand and feel out, well, do we want to go into this restaurant? Who has this restaurant served before? Who's waiting outside? Is that who I want to fit? And also the restaurant is vetting you and saying, well, is this person going to spend any money? Is this person somebody we're interested in having as a guest? So we have to think about the client first. So in this kind of example, we talk about the hostess, we talked about the waiter, and we talked about the bill. And this is exactly what Agile Project Management is. Once you're greeted at the door by the hostess, she asks you to sign up on a list. This is how account managers will actually bring you into the process of a company working. This is every single time that you've talked to a professional services team, you're first met at the door and your expectations are set by somebody who has delivered projects. They give you some demos, they might show you what they've done in the past, and they also give you drinks. So
your connection's good.
Yeah, the connection keeps jumping out, but I have no idea. So the product owner, they've introduced themselves. They bring you into the product owner being the waiter. They bring you to your seat. They ask you what you would like to drink. That's giving you the menu is really setting your expectations. Once again, showing those demos. Here's the things that we've done in the past. Here's what we can do for you. They also express the time that it might take to give you the deliverables. They are upfront about their timing and how they've done things in the past and how long it might take you. Once the requirements are gathered, so the bill there, if you will, the ticket, if you will, that's the exact same way that a project manager or a product owner will document their issues, a backlog, a creation of all the items that you would like to accomplish during the project. This is the exact same thing as how a waiter writes down, well, they want their eggs scrambled. You know, every project is going to have a dev stage prod environment. Well, they might want it on Pantheon. They might want it in Linode. They might want it in something else. So the specific details of how things are documented matters. And this is what we'll call a sprint. This whole entire meal is what we'll call a sprint. From start to finish, there is one thing that we're going to deliver, one thing that we're all going to focus on as a team, and we're not going to go past that. We're not worried about dinner. We're only worried about brunch. So the epic is well documented. We've got acceptance criteria. I know that this breakfast burger at the very top there is what I really, what the client wants. If I bring them Huevos Rancheros, well, that first client's not going to be too happy. So everything's documented. So once the issues are completely documented, that's taken to the designer. The designer, Scrum Master, and the team. So we talk about the head chef as being the Scrum Master. The person at the bread station, or the sous chef, was the designer. And then the rest of the implementation specialists, or junior developers, if you will fill out the rest of this team. So the keeps jumping up to the top of this page. So once the epics are well documented and the tickets delivered to the Scrum Master, he's actually sorting through exactly what all the issues that they have in the pipeline, talking about all the projects that they have going on, and telling his team exactly what needs to be started and delivered on time. So he's calling out orders. He's calling out, I need 2 pieces of French toast, to his designer. So it's just like a Scrum Master talking to his designer and saying, hey, I need wireframes in 2 weeks. Hey, I need this homepage fully fleshed out in 2 weeks. This is just a check-in for the Scrum Master to keep everything organized and to be able to say to the rest of his team, I have expectations. The client has expectations, and these all fit within our timeline and budget. And that Scrum Master also has a higher idea of the vision of the technical aspects of that whole entire meal. Or a whole entire project. They know exactly what needs to go into this project from a large-scale perspective, and they're able to help adjust the blockers and tell the people up front, or tell their team up front, hey, we might have problems. And then it's also the team's responsibility to call back to them and say, well, I've got French toast, but I don't have powdered sugar. That's a blocker. Can we fix that? And the Scrum Master then acknowledges it and gets them some powdered sugar. And the team jumps to make sure that every single person has work that they can do. So the designer has the ability to actually make his French toast because he gets powdered sugar. So once the deliverables are finished, halfway through the meal prep, they have a stand-up. They all get together. They have conversation about what's going on. Hey, this burger's almost done. Is that French toast almost done? We're about ready to plate. Are the eggs ready? Did we get powdered sugar on it? Are we ready to go? Stand-ups are processes that happen during an agile process, during a sprint. You want to have stand-ups that are constant check-ins with the whole entire team, or the decision makers of the team, where not only are they talking to each other, but also the client, us, we were able to overhear what was happening in the kitchen. We were able to overhear, hey, well, we've got some French toast cooking, but we need some powdered sugar. This might be a problem. And us as clients, we're not going to be able to do anything about that, but we at least understand there might be a slight delay because that powdered sugar has to come from the back of the house. So they've launched into implementation. They're deeply into their process. And they deliver the product to the product owner. And they take it to the account manager and the product owner, and they say, hey, we think this is what the client ordered. Is this right? Is this exactly what we wanted, or the client wanted? And the product owner and account manager go, yeah, based on the documentation that we have, based on our bill, our epic, we've written down exactly what they wanted. And yeah, they wanted scrambled eggs, they wanted French toast, and they wanted the bacon, sausage, beef patty. This is what we think needs to go to the client. So they ship it. They take it to the client, and they don't just take it to the client and drop it off and run away. They take it to the client, and they either at that point check in, or they come back a little bit later and they check in and say, hey, is this exactly what you wanted? And the client then has the option to push back and say, well, these wireframes weren't exactly what I thought they would be. Or, well, the performance on the site isn't exactly what I thought it would be. Expect a little bit of pushback. But that's part of this agile process, is transparency and communication between you and the client constantly. So once the product owner sees that there's no pushback, we love the idea of this sandwich and we want to try it and we want to dig in. So we jump into it. We enjoy the product. In this case, we don't need training. In Drupal, you might need some training, but basically this is fork to face or messy hands to face. So the deliverable team is then finished. They go with the product. They start cleaning up their station. This is a retrospective. The team has a conversation with itself and says, hey, did we do anything wrong? Could we do anything better? What did we do well? And those are very important ceremonies of the Agile process also. So the chef was telling his sous chef, maybe we could have fired that beef burger earlier because it would have met us at the French toast perfectly, maybe 30 seconds more. And that open communication has made the team now 30 seconds more efficient, which means that they might get 30 seconds more turnover rate with their more money. These are conversations that every team needs to have. What did we do well? What can we do better? This is a very important part of the Agile process, and I like to put these at the end of every single sprint. So every single meal they were having these kinds of conversations, not only cleaning their space and clearing it and getting ready mentally and physically prepared for the next sprint, but also talking about what they did well. So once the services are rendered, marked complete, the client pays, or there's a retrospective, the client pays, and everybody's happy. The account manager had made money. The product owner got a really big tip because they were attentive. They were really in the zone, checking on you all the time. The bill was well documented, so she had no problem. The account manager had no problem tabulating the bill and delivering it over. We saw it, and even though it's shorthand, we could understand what we paid for and how much we were paying for. It was a flawless Agile system, and we just happened to observe it while eating this bacon or breakfast burger. So, any major questions about the taxonomy right now of Agile? I know this is just a crazy amount of terms, but I hope this has helped kind of create some ties in your mind with how Agile systems truly work. What questions do you have about the words I was throwing around?
Maybe elaborate on epic.
An epic, okay, great. An epic is a parentheses. Imagine a sprint being the smallest equation inside the parentheses. Then you go a little bit larger, and the sprints can fit inside of an epic. So let's say you have one small piece of work that fits within a larger scope. You're building a form. Is that form inside the home page or the Contact Us page? The Contact Us page might be a full functioning page that requires its own epic. It's got a video that shows about the company. It's got a map that locates or that uses Google Maps to locate you. It's got this form spot on it all as well, and it's got a footer that has a bunch of links and stuff. So that whole entire page, one might consider an epic. That's the overall goal of that piece of work, if you will. And then to break that down into smaller chunks, you would find maybe a sprint to do to do some of that functionality, and then issues to do even smaller chunks of that functionality. So I like to think about it as the largest parentheses being a project. A little bit smaller than that, to break that project up into smaller chunks of time-boxed pieces, you would find epics. And epics can actually run through sprints, a couple of sprints. It's basically just a way to associate in your mind, this feature is going to take a lot of time. But we're going to have to break this down into smaller pieces, but it is not the whole project. Does that make sense at all? Yeah. So project, epic, then we get into sprints, and then issues. Issues being the smallest. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, so to relate it to your analogy, it's you're feeding yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Project being food of all time. I eat. The epic being this meal, maybe even this day of food, and then the sprint being this meal. Does that make sense? Awesome. Any other questions? Great. So what about real life? How do I use Agile processes in my real life to not only augment my own personal development, but also better understand how Agile project management might work in a professional flow? I bought a house. And that was silly. It was in October of 2015, and as most of you can imagine, the first thing that you do with a house is renovation. So I had a lot of cleaning, a lot of building, additions to be able to do this house to make it a home. But I also had a budget and time constraints. So naturally, as a project manager, I approached this as a project. And I was able to institute some Agile methods. Firstly, I had to identify how much money I had to deal with this project, and then what my ideal timeline was for accomplishing these tasks. So after identifying that there were several large projects necessary to complete before moving in, I prioritized these projects, and then identified any other small things that I might be able to do to accomplish as well, and also kind of dreamed a little bit. I'm not going to say that I'm on Pinterest, but if you find me on Pinterest, it's me. There's a couple of boards of house renovation stuff that I got really cool ideas from, and stole ideas from. So, of course, in true project management fashion, I created a Trello board. This is actually my Trello board for my house renovation. And, like some of my dreams, a tankless water heater. I don't need a tankless water heater. I have long hair, but I don't take crazy long showers. This is some of the things that I dreamed about, my wish list. This is some of the renovations that I had a professional contractor come in and do. This was my list for things that I knew I could do, and then obviously in progress and done. So for instance, on the bottom left there, you see one of the rooms that I've actually turned into my office now had Disney print border around the whole entire room. And in order to take borders, I don't know if you guys have taken wallpaper, removed wallpaper. A border is the same thing. You have to take this small cylindrical scraper, and you have to spray the border with water, this water solution, and scrape it, and then spray it, and then scrape it, and then spray it, and then scrape it, and slowly, like a sticker, it starts to peel off. And this was foam backed though, so it was even exponentially more hard than just scraping paper off of a water bottle or something. It was probably a 4-hour process to get halfway through the room, and I thought to myself, I would still make a little money on insurance if I burned this whole entire house down. But I finally got it done, and it was very cathartic to push that into the done category. I got the whole room repainted and felt accomplished. And I walk in that room every time and think to myself, I'm so glad this room isn't bright pink in 3 shades with a Disney border around it. Although it would be entertaining for my clients to have to deal with on calls. So after I identified the major blockers for moving in, like installing a shower, it's a 5-bedroom that had 2.5 bathrooms. So I turned one of the half bathrooms into a full bathroom, making that room actually the master bedroom now. And I knew that my budget was only $10,000. I was able to renegotiate my mortgage to add $10,000 extra to be able to use on renovation through the person that I was buying the house from. Once I did some plumbing, built a few walls, tore down a few walls, I had about $5,000 left, so I was trying to wonder what else I could do. Could I do some really cool paint? Could I do some accent walls? And that's when I started employing another really cool agile methodology. This is a pro tip. Works in progress. This is a mentality. This is kind of like minimalism for your time and effort. But work in progress, I basically take everything that I want to do and I identify how much effort I'm putting towards it, and then I prioritize that effort and I prioritize those items. And it seems pretty commonplace, but having a ceremony built into your daily and professional life allows you to really create a lot of productivity and push in specific areas. Sometimes things fall to the wayside, and we as humans have to accept that we're not getting any more time, that we do need to prioritize what we actually do with our time. But when it comes to this house renovation, I was able to say, okay, well, seems like a huge value might be learning what colors I want to paint this house. I've got a bathroom that I want to paint, I've got my office that I want to paint, and I really want this accent wall to be painted as well. So I also, as a 28-year-old single guy, have commitment issues and didn't want to paint an entire wall or an entire room with one color, so I thought to myself, what if I just tried all these colors out on one wall? Well, maybe I can turn that one demo wall into an accent wall as well. And so that's what I ended up doing. I ended up taping this up in a geometric shape, taking all the shades of colors that I wanted to try in all the other walls in the house on my accent wall, and just painted it and came out with something really cool. And this is my only YouTube stardom, but I think it's got 27,000 views right now. Yeah, I'm kind of famous. So anyways, I was working with the paint schemes, and finally decided, well, this light blue is really nice. It's actually not showing now, but this light blue is really nice. I might be able to use that for one of my bathrooms. This purple is way too dark. I'm not going to be able to use this for my office. There was a shade of tan that I used in there, and I decided to paint my whole living room and the hallways with that. So it worked out really well, and now my clients have something really nice to look at in the background besides me. So another project that I'm currently working on in an agile manner. Yesterday, this is how fast this happens. This is how quickly my agile process happens. Yesterday, I purchased an International Harvester Scout, a 1969 International Harvester Scout. And that's basically what it looks like. It's really rusty, really sketchy, but I'm super excited about it. And so excited that I had already built a Trello board to show what projects that I wanted to do on it. And this is how I've created a process in my own life to categorize what needs to be done, what I have the ability and time and money to work on, and what I can consider done. And that catharsis of going through this ceremony constantly has really benefited my life and also added a lot of organization to somebody who really likes organization. It's stepped my game up even further. But you can even see, just with Trello, and there's so many other tools, we could talk for hours on project management tools that I've used, hated, and loved. But Trello is just so easy for personal accountability. For instance, I need to rebuild the carburetors. So what needs to happen in order for me to rebuild the carburetors? I could take that and make it its own epic and decide, okay, well, before I rebuild the carburetors, I need to buy the mechanic manual. I also need to get a bunch of seafoam. I need to understand what kind of needles go into this and what the jets are ported to, and if I need to expand those or minimize those to get the right gas to air ratio. Those are all things that I could put within the carburetor rebuild. But for now, I'm thinking about it. It's on my list of things. I currently have that on my agenda. And then I have all the stuff over here. I want it to kind of be a redneck truck. I was born and raised in the South after all. I don't look like it, but I kind of want to put some really cool fog lights on it, and I might put like a winch bumper on it because I get myself in trouble. But using those agile methodologies, I was able to, in one night, document what I really think my starting point is and where I can go from there. What's up?
So, just to bring this back to that taxonomy that you were talking about, so International Harvest Scout would be your project?
Correct.
And each one of these items is a epic?
It could be. So Trello doesn't really organize epics and sprints very well. So sprints I think of more of as a time box. So a sprint might be, I might consider the sprint just my to-do or my doing column, where I'm taking all those things that I know I have time and budget for right now and creating a time box around that. So let's say I currently have $1,000 to be able to throw at International Harvester parts and service and labor. So I'm going to take the things that I can do, and I kind of have already done that. I know that I need to get the title notarized. I know that I need to make the payment, the full payment on the car, and that I need to transport the car up to North Carolina. Well, I know that I'm only going to be able to do those things despite all the to-dos that I have. I'm only going to be able to get those things done in the next 2 weeks. I've got this camp going on this week. I've got my high school reunion next week, and I work full-time during the week. So for the next 2 weeks, my sprint now covers, within the project, my sprint is that to-do or a doing column, and within those doing columns are my issues. Does that help?
Yeah, definitely.
So in Epic, if we were to break this board, once again, Trello doesn't do a great job covering epics. But if I was to break this down into epics, I might, just like the carburetor, say the carburetor is an epic. Where within carburetor, doing research, understanding the parts that go into it, getting all the materials to be able to fix that, those are a bunch of issues. That could be in and of itself its own project, but that's going to take more than one time box, aka one sprint. And I'm going to have to cover a bunch of smaller issues within that. So epic versus sprint, that's probably the most confusing taxonomy there, is epic being a project within a project, and then sprint being a time box that covers a bunch of issues. They both have issues fitting under them.
Great, thanks.
No problem. Thanks for the question. Any other questions? Awesome. Well, once again, after this project is complete, as I push things further and further towards the done category, we all have to remember personally to hold our friends accountable and for people to hold us accountable. So it is always important to finish every project by taking it to your product owner, making sure that she agrees with it and that she's ready to ship it to the client, which might be you. So I look back to you as the product owners and ask, what questions do you have? You can always ask me questions afterwards at the Justin Rhodes. That's my Twitter. You can find me. I am the Justin Rhodes everywhere. Drupal.org, Facebook, LinkedIn, everything. So that's where you can find me. But what questions do you have about Agile Project Management, about international harvesters, motorcycles, vaporizers? I couldn't have covered it all. Awesome. What's up?
Could you talk a little bit about some project management websites like Trello that would be good for a small office that doesn't have anything in it?
How many people are on your team?
I would say maybe around 20-ish.
20 people?
20, 30.
Okay, I would consider that a medium-sized company. And are they all technical?
No.
Are you hoping to use this project management tool for only technical people? Are there going to be HR? Is there going to be sales? Is there going to be...
It'll just be the sort of the technical team, I guess you'd say.
The development team, great.
It's not really that. It's web people, it's print people, it's
Okay, so there is marketers too.
buyers.
Okay. Do they all work on similar project or
Yeah.
the same project?
That's right.
Great. So Trello is most likely a little too lightweight for that. You have the assigning capabilities. You have the due date capabilities with Trello. You have the ability to, as a group, hold each other accountable with Trello. But it isn't really a great way to show, hey, you're late. This task is late. And you're blocking these other people, and our timeline depends on this. I'm absolutely an Atlassian fanboy. I absolutely love Jira as a product. That is my favorite project management tool that I've ever used because it's so powerful. But some people revere it as more of like a Salesforce of the project management systems. Another great tool, just because it's so huge. It takes a while to get in the flow of. And if you don't have somebody that's got deep experience in Jira on your team, hiring a consultant and paying the monthly can be pretty exhaustive. Another great tool that I would recommend if you're just getting into project management tools and you haven't used Jira before would be Basecamp. Basecamp's pretty lightweight. There's a company called 27 Signals, which is infamous for their publications on web development. It's kind of a think tank, a very small, lightweight team think tank that creates really cool tools to augment their own development workflows and then happens to share it with everybody else, disregarding any feedback they might receive on their tools. They just do what they do. But Basecamp is a really cool way to interface with your team, hold each other accountable, create threads of conversations, but it doesn't really have the deep ingrained task management that you might expect from a project management tool. Teamwork's really, really well regarded as well. My team at Canopy Studios currently uses Teamwork quite well. So that's a great way to create projects, then within projects create issues. Epics and time boxes are a little harder to do there, but you can create basically a calendar that helps you schedule out when tasks are due. So in your stand-ups and Scrum meetings, you can talk about, well, I see on the calendar 3 days from now we have 4 issues due. John, when are you going to get those issues done? John, like it's a great way to hold people accountable publicly. Embarrassment kind of works.
Yeah.
As a project manager, it's worked really well in the past. Not to be mean to people, but to say, hey, just saw that you have an issue due in 2 days. We'd love to get an update on that. And say that to the whole team, directed towards somebody. So Teamwork, Basecamp, Jira, Trello, those are the 4 tools that I've got the most experience with. There's also a bunch that you could check out. Let's see. I've seen a lot of people use, what is that?
Asana.
Asana and Teamwork have a lot in common. I really like Teamwork's user interface a lot better than I like Asana's. Asana is just, feels like a spreadsheet. It's a little uglier.
You ever use a free camp?
I have not.
It's like Basecamp, but it's free.
Gotcha. That's interesting. That's really interesting.
FREED camp.
Cool. I'll check that out.
Yeah. That's what I'm using right now. It's free camp.
I hear a lot of good things about Git projects. That's stepping up as another open source free project management tool, but I've got no personal experience in that. I've just heard that it's been pretty cool.
What's that called?
So it's basically GitHub's project management tool that they're trying to release to people.
I was just thinking of the name of it.
Yeah, it's a Git product. Does that help?
Yeah.
I hope that's helpful. Seriously, I could talk project management tools, their shortcomings and their strengths for hours. I mean, realistically, if you were just organizing all of your tasks through an Excel spreadsheet, that would be better than not. So it's kind of use the tools that you can. Google Docs to organize your documents, creating folders for each project, having a spreadsheet that controls all the tasks and the timelines on those, creating a quick Gantt chart based on that project, then having all the documents in another file, all the resources that you need for the client, whether that's to deliver or you've been delivered from the client, all of those in their own individual folders in Google Docs. That works well. There's no excuse for disorganization when you have free tools like Google Docs. Yeah. What other questions do you have?
Tell me about Scrum.
Are you talking about a Scrum meeting?
Just in general, what is this?
So the idea of Scrum is it hails from rugby. This was an old Agile. It's actually not an Agile specific philosophy. It's from an IBM team that kind of started creating the ethos of Agile Project Management. But they got together and basically would have these stand-ups. I have 5 projects that I'm working on. I have these things that need to be done. I'm blocked by these things. That is how it originated, was a couple of really smart people that had no project management. This is before project management was a role in companies. Higher level developers at IBM talking about what they were doing, what they were going to do, and where they were blocked. And sometimes, as a small team, you're able to say, well, actually, I have a lot of experience in that place that you sound like you're blocked in. Maybe let's spend 15 minutes after this stand-up and talk about that. Maybe I can help you with just a quick conversation instead of you having to go off and research it for a couple of hours or play with it in a development environment and mess it up and mess it up and mess it up. Maybe I can give you the quick roadmap. And that's the beautiful part about Agile, is that you're unsiloing yourself from the rest of your team. You then have access to these other experts on your team that can impact your work in a very important way. So a Scrum meeting, once again, I'm going to use Scrum meeting and stand-up interchangeably, where you set a time, and for a really tight project team with tight deadlines, I would suggest every day. As a project manager, I see the minutes, unbillable minutes, just ticking away. If the team is on a little bit more of a relaxed schedule, having that maybe every 3 days, maybe having it twice a week or 3 times a week, that could work too, or once weekly, where you're talking to the rest of your team. 15 minutes. Take 15 minutes with the rest of your immediate project team and say, what'd you work on? What are you working on? What are you going to work on? And where are you blocked? And somebody can simply say, I've got these 3 projects that I'm working on. I worked yesterday on crushing this bug and finishing this project, and I'm blocked by this one issue. I need help here. And then somebody inevitably is going to say, oh, well, maybe I can help you. Or, hey, I did that with this other project 2 weeks ago. It's still fresh. Can I help you with that? Or maybe everybody else goes, oh, that sucks. I've dealt with that. I don't want to ever deal with that again. Which is cathartic. So that's a stand-up, a Scrum, a ceremony. Once again, ceremony is just like a retrospective, just like a stakeholder interview where you're onboarding the client. Those are very, very important to a project.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you for the question. What other questions? Anybody currently practicing Agile with their companies? I get you. Are the tentative hand raises because you're not fully into Agile and there's some waterfall happening where a client gives you a project and they walk away and come back 6 months later and expect the exact thing that they asked for? Do I get some head shakes on that? Or is it just kind of, I'm really looking at you in the back left. What's your current process? Could you describe it? I got very tentative, like.
Oh, yeah, no, we're 100% Agile.
Okay.
We do Scrum, Kanban on different projects.
Awesome.
We'll track Agile on
Great.
pretty deep into it as a mindset.
That's awesome. I hope you know that I'm here at the front of the room to learn as well as to teach. So I'm curious, how big are your project teams? Is there, 50 people? Are there 3 people that are having these stand-ups and scrums and working on projects?
We have smaller teams.
Great.
So we'll have like a lead developer, an assistant developer, a scrum master, product owner, maybe a QA person, maybe a couple other junior developers, depending on how big it's going.
That's awesome. That sounds perfect. And that's the dream, having a scrum master. Is your scrum master also your project manager? That's even better.
We don't have project managers.
Interesting.
My understanding of it is that the project manager duties are split between the product owner and the scrum master.
Okay,
They kind of do them.
great. This isn't a Drupal specific company, is it?
We do almost all Drupal, but my favorite thing is when we do outside the Drupal technology.
Absolutely. Yeah, the reason I say that, Drupal companies have a pretty bad habit of having a project manager that is the product owner and also the scrum master. That's something that we didn't talk about in this, but sometimes they're in a project needs to be a scrum master who has a deep insight to what needs to happen with the project, has a deep insight to the timeline and also the blockers, as well as the product owner coming in and forcing the will of the client and saying, this is what we really want. It's not just about budget. It's not just about timeline. Here are the huge list of things that I really, really want. And there has to be a tension there. There has to be some times where the product owner says, hey, I know that we're getting tight on budget and timeline, but I can't scrimp on some of these deliverables. And also the scrum master pushing back to the product owner and saying, we only have this much timeline. We only have this much budget. Some of the functionality is going to have to drop. Otherwise, we're going to go over time and over budget. And none of us want that. There has to be that tension. So a lot of people, as they're trying to adopt an agile philosophy into their project management workflows and companies, they find themselves being, or the project manager finds themselves being the product owner and the scrum master. And you can't have internal fights. You can't fight yourself on behalf of the client, wanting more and more and more, and then also on behalf of the team saying we have to do less because we don't have time and budget for that. So that's awesome to hear that your project management duties are split, that there is a scrum master and there is a product owner. And sometimes the product owner can be outside of the company. It can be an actual internal person to the client where they're watching all the progress, they're seeing every push, every code commit, and they're checking the functionality, they're doing QA. Those are the best clients that I've ever had, the ones that are semi-technical, technical enough to be able to read documentation and say, oh, there's a new commit to this one little thing that I should go check right now to see if this button is accessible, see if this button actually clicks. And then pushing back to the Scrum Master and saying, hey, this isn't exactly what I wanted. I think we have an opportunity to do something here without a lot of time and budget going towards it. So thank you for sharing. That's just really cool. What's up?
So we're going